Are you ready to learn some real life English with comprehensible input? Well, good, because today we are going to have a conversation with somebody who I respect very much in the language learning community. Pablo Roman from Dreaming Spanish. Hello, Pablo. How are you?
Hello. Hi, guys. How are you, Kyle?
I'm very well, and I appreciate you being here. So, Pablo, I think you're very well known on the YouTube language learning community. But for any of my viewers who are not familiar with your work, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, I'm Pablo Roman, and I started the YouTube channel and the website Dreaming Spanish, which is now turning into Dreaming because we are starting to do other languages too. Started in 2017, I would say, and we make comprehensible input content. We make videos in Spanish that are easy to understand for people to learn Spanish by just listening and having fun watching the videos.
Okay. So I usually give a very, very brief one-sentence explanation of what is comprehensible input in my introductions. And I say it's when a native speaker, like me, speaks slowly and clearly so that you can understand. Do you think that's a fair description of comprehensible input, or would you describe it a little bit further?
Usually I describe it from the point of view of the learner. So anything is comprehensible input for you if you're learning, if it's comprehensible so you understand it. So input like the one you're providing, making it easy to understand, speaking clearly, is good for a certain level, maybe advanced beginner or intermediate level. If you are starting from zero, then you need more information, you need pictures, you need gestures, etc. If you are an advanced learner, then just watching a movie or a TV show can be comprehensible input to you if you're at the level in which you can understand it well, right?
Absolutely. A thick novel can be comprehensible input if you understand most of what you're reading, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so people often ask me, how do you learn a language with comprehensible input? Do I need to be taking notes while I'm watching it? Should I watch the same video over and over until I understand everything? How should we use this tool of comprehensible input?
I think one idea that helps you understand how comprehensible input works, and if you understand this, then you can decide by yourself what works and what you need to do and what you don't need to do. Which is, if you're hearing or reading a word and you understand it, you are connecting it to its meaning, you are already doing everything that a native speaker, a child, does when learning their native language. You're doing everything that you need to build the meaning of the vocabulary, to mean the grammar, to build the pronunciation, except like actually learning to use the muscles in your mouth. But in terms of creating the model of the language that will let you understand and speak the language well, that's it. You don't need to do anything else. So if you're hearing something and you're connecting it to the meaning, you're connecting the sounds that you're hearing to their meaning, then that's what needs to happen for you to acquire the language. And anytime you ask yourself, should I be also doing this other thing? Most of the time, the answer is just rather spend more time actually getting input and connecting what you're hearing to meanings, and you'll probably make more progress. There are a few nuances, like when you're listening to something, then yeah, it's very useful if you're actually interested in it, if you're really like involved in whatever you're hearing. So it's helpful if you're doing, instead of watching a video, for example, you do crosstalk, you do language exchange with a person that's speaking to you in this case in English. If you're learning English, you're probably going to retain a lot more because you're paying more attention. So there are a few things like this, like, yeah, it's good if it's interesting, if you have a reason to pay attention, if it's memorable, if it's something that is really, really, I don't know, impressing. You find it impressive, or you find it memorable in any way, because it's fun, because it's very relevant to your life, sometimes even because it produces very strong negative emotions. If you find something like disgusting or you disagree with it very strongly, sometimes you'll remember it a lot. But all these are details about how you get your input. It's not something in addition to input. It's not like, looking up words in the dictionary or writing down words, not even trying to like retain words in your head, like, oh, I heard this new word, I'm gonna try to repeat it several times in my head so I don't forget it. I recommend you just rather keep listening to the input you're receiving, and you'll probably benefit more from that.
Okay. I feel like we shouldn't watch the same video over and over. I think I heard you say that a long time ago in one of your videos, that it's better to watch a wide variety about different topics. And I think that's what you've achieved on Dreaming Spanish by having so many different creators on there with so many different accents, such a wide range of topics. I love that about Dreaming Spanish.
Some people do like watching things several times. I think it can be okay if, let's say, the second, third time you watch something, you find that, oh, now I understand these things that I didn't understand, this part that I didn't understand before. And if you're not getting bored, like if you're watching something many times because you think you have to and you're getting bored and you're not paying attention, for sure, don't do that. It's up to the individual person. Myself, I prefer watching new stuff, watching interesting stuff, videos about things that I still haven't learned, that I still don't know about I don't know, science or society or whatever. But as long as you're not getting bored and not going into like trying to memorize every single expression, every single word. So, because watching one thing many times, some people do it because they want to study the material. They want to analyze, why is this word being used here? Why is this expression being used like this? Like don't do that. So if you're watching something many times to do this kind of intensive listening, don't recommend that.
Okay. Some people, engineers and scientists, those types, maybe they actually enjoy studying and really breaking it down. But for me, I always say if it feels like you're studying, it's not comprehensible input. It should be fun. It should be entertaining. You should be not even feel like you're studying. You should feel almost like you're watching a show on Netflix, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's right.
So they often ask me as well, is comprehensible input enough on its own? Or in your opinion, is there a place in language learning for studying actual grammar and using vocabulary apps like Anki?
For studying grammar, not really. I don't think studying grammar is necessary. I know like there's a lot of things that people say, oh, but children study grammar in school, etc. Not really. We don't really, when we start like first grade, usually we can use already most of the grammar of our first language. And there's even, we have proof that like researchers have proved that whatever they teach in school doesn't even match with the order in which children acquire the grammar of the language. So we don't learn in school grammar that then we go on to actually use in real life. Usually what you learn in school is how the like proper written language is different from the language that you speak at home or that you may speak in your region or of your country, or just a more colloquial way of speaking your language. And in school they may teach you like the proper way, like how you should write, right? But that's also learned by just reading a lot. If you want to learn like the differences between the spoken language and the written language and how to write well, how you're supposed to write, how other people write when they're writing serious stuff. So no, I don't think there's a place for grammar learning until, if you're curious about it, if you're interested in it, if you like learning about grammar, then I recommend you just do it later on once you're already fluent. in the language, and you can do it, and it's fine if you just are interested in that. You just need to know that grammar is something. Grammar rules are researched and found about the language. When people already can speak the language, then linguists go in there and analyze the language and describe it using grammar rules. It doesn't go the other way. It's not like the rules existed before and then people started using them and speaking the language, right? And then you mentioned Anki and vocabulary study. Yeah, I also don't recommend something like Anki. Anki can work very well for things that are very item, like for memorizing facts. It worked really well for me when learning kanji for Japanese. So for that kind of thing, it can work very well. For words, the issue with words is that words are not one single item of information. Words are blurry, are messy, are oddly shaped in the sense that they cover a certain like range of meanings and contexts and nuances that are actually never gonna match whatever you add on the flashcard, whatever you add to the back of the flashcard, whether it's a translation or a definition or anything. Words are such like complex, kind of messy things that you're not really gonna learn them well with flashcards. You really need to see the word used in real life in many places, in many different contexts, with different meanings, for you to really be able to map out the meaning and the usage and the nuances of each word on your brain, right?
Absolutely. So, comprehensible input, you're acquiring the words in the real way that we use them. And I've had many people tell me, okay, now I understand you when I'm speaking, but when the time comes to talk, it's like it can't come out. It doesn't come out, and I don't have anybody to practice with. Where I live, nobody speaks English. What do you suggest to these people?
Okay, so there are two things here. One thing is being able to use the words that you know. People often have this idea that they have to practice a word that they can understand so that they can unlock it and have it become active or move from their passive vocabulary to their active vocabulary. But that's not my experience at all. And what I've seen and what we've seen when teaching people Spanish, what we've seen is that if your word is not in your active vocabulary yet, it just means that you haven't acquired enough of it. You still haven't acquired the word completely. And a word, you need to learn it little by little. When you learn it with input, you never learn a whole word in a day. You need to be exposed to that word many times in many different contexts. As I say, in comprehensible input, you don't learn maybe 10 words in one day. You learn 1% of 1,000 words in one day, right? So little by little, you'll be acquiring that word, and it will be getting better and better, your knowledge of that word, until at some point it's gonna go over a threshold, and you're gonna know that word enough over, let's say, I don't know, 80%, whatever. I'm making it up how percent of the word you need to know. But going above a certain level of understanding and knowing that word, and then you'll be able to use it yourself. You'll be able to come up with the word yourself when having a conversation without having to struggle, without having to think about it. And the second one is self-confidence. If you have some experience speaking and you see other people understand you, then you gain confidence, and it becomes easier to then actually use the language in real life, to then go to a shop and order something, go to a restaurant, do whatever you actually want to use the language for, right? So it's worth doing some speaking practice. I've learned languages. I mean, even when I was learning Thai, I did manage to find some native speakers of the language where I was living. If you can't find any, then there's always online. If you're at the intermediate level or higher, you can start doing crosstalk, in which you hear the other person speak. If you're learning English, you hear the other person speak English, and you speak your language. If the other person is learning Spanish, you speak Spanish to them, right? And then to actually practice speaking the language you're learning, then I would wait until you're at a higher level. But you can still do it this way, doing just calls or video calls online. finding people on Reddit. There's, I think, a subreddit for looking for language exchange partners, or just using apps like HelloTalk and Tandem to find partners.
Okay, great. People ask me for resources. So, guys, those really are very useful resources, places where you can find somebody not only to help you practice speaking, but they want to learn your language as well. So they are just as excited as you are to speak to you. So it's a really great tool. How do you feel about reading and language learning? I know you've spoken with Steve Kaufman. I'm a huge fan of Link, and I'm just a reader at heart. So for me, reading is a great way to acquire new vocabulary. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about reading as an intermediate level learner?
So there's kind of a compromise here. Like in general, with our approach, we warn people about reading too early, because when you read too early, when you read before you've clearly built in your brain the model for the sound system of the language, you're gonna inevitably read the words in a way that's not native, in a way that's influenced either by your native language or by the way you think those letters should sound in the language. And so that's going to influence the way you hear the words in your head when you're reading, and later on when you speak and when you say those words, right? So we do warn about doing reading, or a substantial amount of reading, early on, and we recommend leaving it for later if you care about accent, about speaking, like having clear pronunciation. If you don't care that much, if you're mostly in it for like listening, watching movies, reading books and stuff, then it's not as big of a problem. And later on, then yeah, reading is great. Reading exposes you to vocabulary that usually you don't encounter in real life, and can be really fun if you like reading novels, or you like reading nonfiction about a specific topic. Then it's a great way of having like language learning be an enjoyable experience in general, right? And I do still read a lot for, like, in Japanese. I'm already fluent in Japanese. I've been for many years, but reading, especially literature, there's still a lot of words that are not used in day-to-day life. So I still practice reading Japanese, and I still want to keep improving, keep reading and keep improving.
Okay, so in this conversation already, you've mentioned Japanese, Thai, Chinese. We're speaking English. You're a native Spanish speaker. How many languages are you fluent in, Pablo?
So I'm bilingual since I was a child in Spanish and Catalan. And then I learned English and French, Japanese, Thai, and now I'm learning Chinese. I'm kind of on a high intermediate level of Chinese. So I'm learning my 7th language.
Wow. And after all these years of language learning, do you still find it fun? Does it still excite you to learn these new languages?
So I have, like when I was learning Japanese, I was like having a blast. Oh, this is so much fun. I'm going to go on and learn so many languages. But then life kind of gets in the way. And for me, Chinese is still pretty important. Chinese is the most spoken language in the world, will even be more important later on, like in the future. I see many people speaking Chinese out here in the street in Bangkok. So I'm still going to keep at it. After that, for a while, I don't have the same kind of hunger that I had before. I'll probably keep kind of improving a bit my Italian. We did go on a trip to Italy a couple of years ago. I did learn a little bit for that. I don't know if I'll like get fluent in Italian, but I still listen to some podcasts, and probably will keep doing that for a while. So I'll keep improving a bit. And then I do want to learn enough Portuguese, at least to be able to understand TV shows and movies and stuff. After that, I don't know if I'll really make a big effort to learn any other language. Maybe like this much, like if somebody or we ourselves create another language, create Dreaming German or some other language, maybe I will start doing it. I don't know if I'll have the motivation to actually like find conversation exchange partners, set up a call and try practicing speaking, getting good at speaking and stuff. We'll see, because I know there are also other things in life, right? And I may like find other hobbies.
Someday you may find another hobby, but language learning has served you well, I think. So your English is obviously great. When did you learn English, and how did you learn English? Was it some sort of comprehensible input, or did you learn English the traditional way?
Yeah, of course not. I only learned about comprehensible input in like 2013, when I had already learned Japanese well. And the way I had learned was maybe like 80-90% overlapping with comprehensible input, but I didn't really know like the terms. I learned Japanese with something called All Japanese All the Time, which is a blog, or was, I think it's still there, a blog in which a guy just submersed himself in Japanese, just did complete Japanese immersion, and just only listened to Japanese and read Japanese for years, at least for like a year and a half before he went to work in Japan. And so I did the same, and it worked really well. So that's why also I was pretty ready to accept comprehensible input when I learned about it, when I found about it. But of course, this was quite a bit after I had already learned English. I had already been an exchange student abroad. First I went, so let's start. So yeah, I learned English the traditional way. I learned, as every other person in school, a little bit in primary school, and then a little bit more in middle school, and then a little bit more in high school. But like everybody else, I couldn't really hold a conversation after I finished school. I couldn't learn a children's novel. I couldn't understand like a TV show or a movie or anything, right? So I did keep improving my English by just reading and trying to learn about computers and programming and stuff. I studied computer science in university, and a lot of documentation and books and things that I was interested in were only in English. So naturally, I kept reading quite a bit of English and kept learning it. And then in, I would say, third year, like starting fourth year of university, my mom invited me and my sister to a short trip to New York. And so I knew we were gonna go there 3 months before we went. So I started like immersion in English. I didn't know anything again about comprehensible input or even All Japanese All the Time. And I just knew that, okay, I can watch cartoons, I'll learn something. I can watch like Futurama in English. I can watch, listen to podcasts and stuff in English, and I'll learn something. So I started doing that. I did that for 3 months, and then after we went to New York and came back, I don't know how the timing went with this, but I had already decided to go study abroad for my 5th year of undergrad. And I ended up going to Finland. So this whole year before going to Finland, I kept doing this. I kept doing like watching series and cartoons in English and listening to podcasts. And then when I went to Finland, I was fine. Like I could sit in a lesson in English, everything in English, and I was understanding everything. I made friends from many different countries, and the first week there, my brain was like really hurting. Like my head was hurting just because of speaking English the whole day. I had never really done that. I had never had to speak English in any kind of meaningful way. Never really sat down to practice it. When I had to really use it was maybe with some friends. We went to Belgium once, and I had to make a call to book a hotel and maybe interact at the hotel at some restaurant or something there, but like very little, right? So I went from never really having practiced speaking English to speaking English the whole day for like every day when being in Finland, and I was fine. I could express myself. I could get by. So that's one more reason why I think that a lot of practice beforehand is not really important. And after a week there, then my head stopped hurting, and I was fine. And then so yeah, then I was 1 year then in Finland. The classes were in English. I studied a little bit of Finnish in school, but didn't really use it in any meaningful way. And after that, I got a scholarship to do a master's degree in California. So I went there and continued living, studying in English and making friends in English for a year and a half. And by the end of that, I would say I was fine. I was like, there was not a very meaningful difference with my current level of English. Probably know many more words now, but like in practice, things that are useful, that are necessary for practical use of the language, probably I was fine by then. So yeah, I learned English in a combination of traditional study and then just going abroad and living and using it.
Okay. Yeah, living in the language is really the way to achieve that high level. In English in particular, was there anything that you just found super tricky? One little thing that always gave you problems and you really had to work on?
Yeah, and it's one reason why I realized when learning Japanese that something had gone kind of quite wrong when learning English, and then that I did quite a bit better when learning Japanese, which is there were some mistakes in English that I just kept making over and over and over, even if I corrected myself every time I made them. This was particularly true with prepositions, like the way prepositions and prepositions work in Spanish and English is not one-to-one. It's like if you try to connect them, it's kind of a weird mesh. And we learned them like that in school. We learned them as like translations and then exceptions and when to use one or the other. So I kept making mistakes, but I knew that I was saying something wrong, and then I would correct myself and say it right, but then the next time we would go on to make the same mistake again. But then when I learned Japanese, this didn't happen at all. Like, I know people get confused about the particles in Japanese, and I saw people confusing certain particles, but then I never actually had that issue. For me, they felt like two completely different things, and I couldn't imagine why they would want to use this particle in this situation when it was clearly not what you were supposed to use there. And that's just because it felt natural to me. It felt normal because that's what I had always seen. I had never learned those as like translation of anything, or never tried to translate Japanese back to Spanish or to English when listening, or from English or from Spanish to Japanese when speaking. So I think that saved me that trouble of then having to go and like fix all those things, which is very hard to do.
My wife has had similar issues being a native Spanish speaker with her English. She'll be happy to hear you explain that and mention that you had similar problems.
Yeah, it's not her fault. It's the
No.
the approach to learning.
Definitely. Yeah, it's almost as if the traditional methods can sometimes do more damage than good. So I'd like to speak a bit about Dreaming Spanish. I'm a huge fan. I attribute 98% of my Spanish to Dreaming Spanish. What made you want to create the YouTube channel and later the site Dreaming Spanish?
Well, so after living in Japan, I was in Japan doing grad school, doing a PhD, which I didn't finish. I kind of gave up on that. But then I became interested in language learning, why I had learned Japanese so well and having so much fun, and how I could help people do the same, right? So I found a school in Thailand that taught using comprehensible input in a really cool way that really matched it with my experience learning other languages and learning Japanese. So I decided to come to Thailand for 1 year to learn Thai and to get that experience about what it's like to learn from zero using this approach, seeing if it really worked, and trying to do something useful with this, right? So after being 1 year here in Thailand and learning Thai at that school, then I had to decide, okay, this worked really well. Now I can speak Thai to a certain level, and I've reached this level by doing just listening at the school, no like study, no practice or anything. So how am I gonna help people with this, right? And I tried a couple things. Before this, I had already tried creating a website similar to Dream Spanish right now, but to learn English, but with content that's already available on the internet, that's already on YouTube in that at that time. The problem is that we couldn't really find content that was easy enough for Spanish people, for really my family, my friends, and people I knew in Spain to understand and to be able to make progress. When I came back from Thailand, I went back to Spain for a while. I thought, okay, so now I know that that didn't work because the content was not comprehensible. Let's say now I want to learn Chinese, and I already learned Japanese by myself. Before going to Japan, I started learning by myself with online content. So I'm gonna do the same for Chinese. I'm gonna look for content that's comprehensible, that I can acquire Chinese with, and I'm just gonna share that content with other people. So I'm gonna be their coach, and I'm gonna be telling them like day to day, week to week, what they need to do to learn Chinese. And this can grow as a business, like they will be my clients, pay some money, and then in the future we can expand this, make it less work on me, so that it can be kind of a program that's kind of more automated, so that more people can also join. Is also cheaper for people who join, because I don't have to do as much work for each of them individually, and let's see if that works. Well, it turned out it was very hard to find content in Chinese that was comprehensible for a beginner, even though knowing Japanese kind of was already helping me a little bit, but even then it just didn't exist. Like the same amount of comprehensible input content that you find now on YouTube, there's like 10, 15 Chinese channels, comprehensible input Chinese channels, but none of that existed then. So I realized that the content just wasn't there, so I had to make it myself. And I'm a native Spanish speaker, and many people want to learn Spanish. So the most obvious solution was just to start making Spanish content. If I had money, I always say, if I had money, I would have hired people to make content in Chinese, so I could also learn Chinese myself. But I didn't have money, so I just had myself. So I started just recording the videos myself.
Well, I'm very happy that you didn't have money, because the work that you did on Dreaming Spanish helped me out so much. So I'm happy that you didn't have the money at the time, and I think probably looking back, you could be grateful that in that moment you didn't go the other route, because I think Dreaming Spanish has been a huge success. How do you feel about it? Do you feel happy with where you are right now with Dreaming Spanish?
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Like I would say, because I started already like 8 years ago. So at each step of the way, it's felt really slow. Like I've always wished that it would be like growing faster. But looking back, yeah, it seems pretty incredible that I like just randomly started recording a video one day in March in like 2017, and now in early June we had a like get together with most people in the team, in the company in Barcelona, and like seeing all of them, we were like I think 18 people in one big meeting room in a co-working space in Barcelona, and seeing all of them there, it was pretty amazing. It was that feeling of there's just like this one thing that if I hadn't started doing at this point in time, none of this would exist, right? That was pretty shocking.
That's very cool, and I feel the same way. I've been working for almost 4 years now on this channel, and it was so slow. Nobody watched anything at first, and 4 years later of just filming by myself, hardly getting comments, and now last weekend, 2 days after my 34th birthday, we hit 100,000 subscribers. So it's a great feeling, and I congratulate you for how much it's grown. What is next for Pablo Roman and the Dreaming Company?
Well, for now, more languages. We started working on French, and we already have the Dreaming French YouTube channel available for everybody. We're going to open the French section of the website sometime this year, hopefully sooner rather than later. We're working on the mobile app, which is right now only for premium users, but also at some point this year we want to make it available in the Play Store, in the App Store for everybody. And then just like keep improving things, keep improving the user experience and the tools that are available to people on the website. Keep improving the quality of the content and the effort we make when making each video. And more languages. We haven't decided what's going to be the next language after French, but yeah, people can expect, I don't know, in the next few years that we're gonna expand to other, initially the more popular languages probably.
Awesome. I'm subscribed already to Dreaming French. I've watched several, and you've got some good creators on there. So guys, anybody who is also trying to learn Spanish, you have to subscribe to Dreaming Spanish if you're not already. And for French as well, I would suggest Dreaming French. This technique really works, guys. Pablo, one last question I'd like to ask you is, I think that learning a language can really change your life in so many ways. It could help people with relationships, jobs, just becoming a more outgoing and confident person. What is the best thing that has happened to you in your life because of a language that you've learned?
What's the best thing? I don't know, meeting my wife. I have to say, I think.
She's watching. Pablo's scared right now, guys.
No, everything, like just this, like having this life. Like I would have never been able to start this project, to start Dreaming Spanish. To begin with, I couldn't speak English well. Couldn't have started if I hadn't gone through that experience of learning Japanese well, to gain this confidence in the approach of learning languages, and just the experience that then I was able to use to make content for learners. Having had this experience as a learner myself, I knew what was necessary for people to be able to understand the content.
Well, that was the last question I had for you. Pablo, I've wanted to tell you this for some time now. Dreaming Spanish has been a huge influence on me, and without it, I don't know if I would have met my wife. I had to say that because she's watching.
Okay.
But sincerely, thank you so much for the work you've done. It's been a pleasure learning with you, and I appreciate the time that you've put into an amazing channel.
Well, thanks to you for inviting me to the channel.
All right, everybody watching, thank you so much. I appreciate every single one of you, and we will see you guys in the next video.
Goodbye.